audiophonic recording, the feeling of space and perspective is brought to you.
Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of the Silent Feedbacks podcast. I'm your host, Josh, and this podcast is just going to be me just showing my love for music, movies, and all things pop culture, really. Video games, TV, books, comic books. So, I'm just happy that I get a chance to do this, and I hope you all enjoy. Now, for this first ever episode, I wanted to start off with a top 10 list. Now, I don't really do a lot of these top 10 lists, but I've been starting to do them recently. This and tier lists, and I've really enjoyed them so far. So, I wanted to start off with a top 10 list of something subject that really interests me, which is video games. I've been playing video games since it's like 5 or 6 years old. First system I ever had was a PS1, and then I eventually got an Xbox, traded that in for a GameCube. I never had a PS2, but after that I went straight to the 360 and had that for that whole generation. Then I went to PS4 because I really wanted to play the MLB The Show series. So after I went to PS4, now I haven't gotten any of the next gen consoles except the Series S, Xbox Series S, because that was the only one that was available. But eventually I wanted to get a PS5. But for now, I'm cool with my PS4 and my Series X. But yeah, that was just a little history of my video game, console history. But yeah, I've always been playing video games my whole life, and a type of video game that I really enjoy is sports games, specifically basketball and football. I've played FIFA. I was really into FIFA 13. That was a big one when I was in high school. I played boxing games, the Fight Night series, UFC series. I'm really into those. And then baseball, MLB The Show, MLB 2K series. I was really into that. Slugfest. All those arcadey sports games I really like. But the truth is, basketball has always been my favorite sport. So that's one I really got into as a kid. So I thought, for this first ever episode, why not just do a basketball tier list? And I wanted to do a top 10. I narrowed it down to 10 with a couple honorable mentions, but yeah, man, I just wanted to get into this. So it's gonna be my top 10 favorite basketball video games. And let's just start off this list. Now, these games are gonna be kind of limited to games I played. I'm 27 now, so I've been playing games mostly in the 2000s. So, I'm not gonna get into, the Sega Genesis games, the SNES stuff. So it's really gonna start with PlayStation for me, PS2 era, Xbox, GameCube, and kind of going forward from there. So, let's just start off this list. So I guess I'll start off with number 10. Number 10 on this list is a game that not a lot of people talk about. It's kind of an underrated basketball game, because really the truth is there's two series in the NBA basketball games that kind of dominated for years, and that's the NBA 2K series, which was Sega Sports. Started off on the Dreamcast with NBA 2K, and they just continued it up. Still going strong now with NBA 2K22. It's just, this is a series that's been going on for 22, 23 years and stays strong. And their main competition was the EA series. These are the NBA Live games. I think it started off NBA Live 95, and it's been going forward. I started with NBA Live 2001, so that's around the time I started playing this game. So I'm probably gonna go on this list. It's basically from 2001 going forward. But yeah, so those 2K and Live were the two series that the McDonald's, Burger King, Microsoft, Mac, those two big conglomerates that kind of dominate the scene. But there was a lot of other games from different companies, basketball games, that I really enjoyed. And I kind of want to give them a little shine, that I feel like they were underrated. So yeah, number 10 on this list is actually NBA Inside Drive 2003. Now this is a game exclusive to the Xbox, and came out on October 15th, 2002. Now this is around the time where I got my Xbox, so I'm pretty sure this was the first basketball game I got with my Xbox. And it had Paul Pierce on the cover, and I was just amazed by the graphics. I had never seen graphics that good in my life. Around that time, you had NBA Live, I think 2003 was out. Same thing with NBA 2K3 was out. And those games, the gameplay was really good, but the graphics on NBA Inside Drive just blew me away. Just very smooth graphic looking, and the Xbox always just had better graphics for me, so I really enjoyed that game. There's just a lot of things to enjoy with it. Again, the graphics were great. Presentation was really, really good. It had the intros for the players when they came out. The crowd didn't look that great, but I mean, this is 2002, so they didn't really have the crowd graphics in there yet, but everything just felt smooth. I do kind of remember the free throws being weird, where you had to kind of it like went left to right. You kind of had to hit it in the middle. It's kind of like how Madden did the field goal kicking back in the day, probably around Madden 2003. But yeah, man, it's just an underrated series. I think a lot of people don't really talk about those NBA Inside Drive games. They were actually put out by Microsoft Studios. The developer was High Voltage Software, and they also did the NFL Fever games. I think there was the Lynx games for golf. Baseball, I don't remember exactly what it was called, but I do remember Roger Clemens was on the cover. But yeah, man, they just had very smooth graphics. I think the gameplay wasn't as good as the Live and 2K series, but it was good enough to get number 10 on my list. So that was number 10. Number 9 for me is actually the game that competed with this game. It came out in October 8th, 2002, and that was NBA Live 2003. This is a game I actually had on GameCube. GameCube was a system that I had. I got around the same time I got my Xbox, and yeah, man, I just really enjoyed this game. The soundtrack was amazing on this game. It was the only soundtrack that went certified platinum. First ever video game soundtrack to do that. Sold over 1.3 million copies, which is crazy. And my favorite song on that soundtrack was easily Angie Martinez, If I Could Go. That song was fire. I had Busta Rhymes, Snoop Dogg, Fabulous. That Hot Carl track was really good. So yeah, man, that soundtrack was amazing. But yeah, I just had the thing I love about the live games were they're just so arcadey, had the classic freestyle controls. In GameCube you use the C-stick, so you can just do all your crossovers, and it just felt like very fast and just arcade fun. And just playing with my friends, I just always loved the NBA Live series for that arcade feel. Post moves were really good in that game, and just the presentation I feel like wasn't up to the 2K level, but I just loved the arcade of it, and just the feel of playing a live game. It just felt unique versus the other games on the scene. They were going for realism, but they also were going for kind of fun. The idea of playing a video game is to have fun, and they really accomplished that with that game. So that's number 9 on my list, which was NBA Live 2003. Number 8 on my list is a game that is from the 2K series. Now 2K, when it was going, especially in the early days, their big thing was graphics, presentation, and realism. Gameplay was very important to them, but they focused more on the realistic side, while Live focused more on, the fun arcadey side. So a game that really meant a lot to me when it came out, that I have as number 8 on this list, is ESPN NBA 2K5. Now, everyone knows NFL 2K5 is a classic game. It's one of the best football games ever made, in my opinion. Just so many features. But I feel like the NBA version was, I wouldn't say just as good, but it was pretty good too. And I feel like it's kind of underrated by sports fans. But yeah, man, NBA 2K5. It was the first one with the actually, I think it was the second one with the ESPN presentation, which was really cool for the time. I always used to watch SportsCenter growing up, so I love the, having like Stuart Scott, Chris Berman, all these ESPN, classic people on the game, which was so cool for the presentation. It felt like you were actually watching the real NBA. Just super realistic gameplay. I mean, the thing about 2K is they always focused on the realism. So, the AI was playing, realistic defense with realistic sets. You had the zone defense. Same thing with the offense. You had the floppy sets, the pick and rolls, pick and screens, pick and pops, all that stuff, Yeah, it was really, really well done with the gameplay and running plays. I feel like if you wanted to play that realistic game where you want to run plays and you really want to sweat about it, then you play the 2K series. But if you just want to have fun and just hang out with friends, maybe friends who aren't really into basketball and just want to dunk, shoot threes and stuff, like with my sister, I play a lot of Live, because Live, I feel like, captures that arcade style, that more casual style, while 2K is more realistic. So but yeah, man, that game was great. Graphics were great, and had this feature called the crib, which is also in the NFL 2K5 game, that just allowed you to design your crib. It was basically a house where you can put all your different trophies. If you played, the franchise mode and you won a trophy, it would go in there. Any type of milestone or kind of achievements you would do in the game would go there. You would unlock different stuff. You can have like a pool table, decorate your crib with different, because you would gain points. You play the game, you gain points. It would allow you to unlock different stuff, which I think was great. Add to the replayability of the game. And yeah, man, I just really enjoyed that aspect of it. Kind of remind me of the old WWE games back in the day, SmackDown versus Raw series, where you could do similar stuff. And I definitely want to do a list of my favorite wrestling games, ranking them, because I love wrestling. I've been playing those games since I was a kid too. All right, so that was number 8, which was ESPN NBA 2K5. Number 7, we're going back to Live, and this is going to be NBA Live 2004. Now, again, with these basketball games, they're yearly, so sometimes the improvements are minimal, between the years. Sometimes they're dramatic, and it depends on a lot of factors. One is if they're going to a new console, sometimes the developers split their teams between working on the next gen and the old gen, and that kind of dilutes the game. But when they're just working on the next game and they're in this flow, and for me that was the probably 2002 to 2005 era, where they were just putting out bangers every year. So NBA Live 2004, I feel like it did everything that NBA Live 2003 did, but just way 10 times better. Soundtrack again was just crazy. I mean, looking through this list, Outkast Ghetto Music, that was a classic. Black Eyed Peas Hands Up, classic. Chingy Right There, classic. Dilated Peoples Love and War. Da Brat, I Got Poppin', Lil Flip, Freeway. It was just a crazy soundtrack. And the game itself, it was everything 2003 was, but with better. It was just very smooth. The freestyle controls were better. You could do more moves with it. They added more dunks, and the dunks in the game were crazy. It had Vince Carter on the cover, so they really focused on, doing different dunks. I know you can do it through the legs dunk in this game, windmill, and and the gameplay again was just arcade fun. It's one of those games I can always go back to and just play, and just have fun, for however long. So NBA Live 2004, that was a game that I really enjoyed, and I actually got that one on the Xbox. I'm gonna try to list the system that I had it on. So yeah, I didn't list the last one, but ESPN NBA 2K5 was on Xbox too. Alright, so that was number 7. For number 6, I'm gonna bring out number 6 is an interesting one. It's one I got a lot later, and this is a game that is definitely on the arcade side. It's not a realistic game, but I've always loved this series, and that's the NBA Jam series. This one specifically is the NBA Jam On Fire edition. This was the one that was only available on the Xbox Live Arcade, so I had it for Xbox 360. But basically, it's the classic NBA Jam formula, which if you've never played NBA Jam, you definitely should give it a try. It's a classic arcade game, 2-on-2 basketball, and just totally ridiculous. You shoot half-court shots, crazy dunks, alley-oops. You can push people. I mean, it's not realistic at all. It's just pure arcade fun. And basically, you choose 2 players from each team. They had all these hidden characters. They usually have presence at the time, public figures, celebrities that you can play as, and it's just fun gameplay. There's no fouls, no timeouts. It's just, have fun, do crazy dunks from the 3-point line, half-court shots. And then they had this really cool feature where, when you start hitting a bunch of shots, your players will get actually on fire, and then they'll just dominate even more. It's hard to stop. Now, one thing that I've always loved about the NBA Jam series, going back to the arcade days, was the commentary. Whoever did the commentary was amazing. I mean, it's just classic. The boom shakalaka. Only thing better than a dunk is a block dunk. I mean, I love these comments on there, and it's just the commentary is just so funny. It's so much fun playing with my friends. Just having fun playing these games. I mean, it was great. The cheat codes were great. And it had, I think it was Midway who came out with the game originally, the original arcade version. And yeah, man, it just had that same feel of just just playing NBA Jam. The great about this edition too is you could play online. So I could play different people online on the Xbox 360. So yeah, man, that game, the reason why I put that up on there, the game itself, NBA Jam On Fire Edition, was amazing, but this kind of represents the whole NBA Jam series, even the NBA Showtime, just because the games are very similar, but they're always just great arcade games to play. So that's number 6 on the list. Number 5 for me is NBA Live 2005. So far I've gone 2003, 2004, and 2005 have all been on this list. And that just shows that era of NBA Live was just killing it. They had just so many good games going back to back. And this one, really has a vivid memory for me because it came out September 28th, 2004. So I was 9 years old at the time. And I just remember getting this game from GameStop or EB Games, wherever. And there was a day where school was canceled. I think there was some type of power outage or something, and I had just gotten the game, and I was so happy I could go back home and I played that game the whole day. And it was just so many improvements in this game. Presentation was amazing. They had these things where they had icons by their names where you can see, oh, this person's a sharpshooter, this person's a dunker. So clearly, with players you didn't know, okay, this person can shoot threes. That's a big thing with these basketball games. A lot of times you don't know, especially if the graphics aren't great and you don't really know the team that well. You don't know if that person, the sub, can actually shoot or not, which can be frustrating when you're shooting a 3 with someone who has like a 60 or 53 point rating, and then they just miss the open shot. So I love how they put the icons next to the name so you knew who could do what, who specialized in what, who could dunk well, who had great crossover skills, who played great defense, who was a great blocker. So I love that game. I love just the atmosphere of the game, the commentary, the crowd noise. And this is number 5 on my list, but I can see, I would understand if some people have this number 1 on their list, because this is just the pinnacle for me. One of the best eras of NBA Live. This 2003, 2006 era, it was just fire. All the games were fire. So good. And the big addition in this game that I used to play every day, like hours and hours, was the All-Star Weekend. I used to love watching All-Star Weekend, the dunk contest. First ever dunk contest I watched was the Jason Richardson one. I think it was 2002. And that was a classic dunk contest with I think it was Desmond Mason. I'm trying to think, but yeah, back in that day, I know Jason Richardson won a couple of them. They had Fred Jones won one, Josh Smith, and then later on I would go back and watch the Vince Carter Classic one, Kobe Bryant, Isaiah Ryder, all those 90s ones, D Brown, of course Mike and Dr. J. So I love the dunk contest, and then 3-point contest I love too. Watching Ray Allen, Steve Nash, Vashawn Leonard, Quentin Richardson, that whole era of mid 2000s 3-point contests were fire. So the fact that was in the game and you could play, you could do the dunk contest, you could do a 3-point contest, you had the All-Star game, the rookie sophomore game. I mean, it was just amazing. I mean, it was so addicting. And the dunk contest was really fun too, because they had just so many creative dunks. You could do a 720, do it through the legs twice, you can throw it off. There's like scaffolding in the game, so you could throw it off the top of the scaffolding and do kind of alley-oop to yourself. I mean, there's just so many things. And it had the TNT commentators, so it had Kenny Smith and Ernie Johnson on the call, which was just amazing. So I put probably thousands of hours into that game, just playing all the time. I literally played that game like every day. So that's number 5. And the games above it to me are just amazing. So that's the only reason it doesn't get a little higher, is because there's just other basketball games that I feel like are better. But someone could convince me that this is number 1, because I just really loved NBA Live 2005. So let's move on to number 4. Now, number 4 on the list, this one, it's not controversial, but I think a lot of fans may see this as being a little high, but for me, this is a game that just blew my mind. And one of the reasons it blew my mind was because the presentation that they put into this game was just different than anything that they had done to that point. And the previous year they had done some presentation things that blew my mind, but this year they took it even further, and that game is NBA 2K12. I had this on the Xbox 360, and it came out October 4th, 2001. Now, the thing about this game that was amazing is, 2K11, it's NBA 2K12. I don't know if I said 2001, my bad, but it's NBA 2K12. Now, NBA 2K11, it was the Michael Jordan game. It had the Michael Jordan mode where you can play through all of Michael Jordan's career highlight games, and 60-point game, the flu game, all that stuff. But with this game, they had 15 different legends that you can do that same thing for. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Kareem, Wilt Chamberlain. They had Bill Russell, Jerry West, Isaiah Thomas, Hakeem. It's just like this huge list of legends. And the crazy thing about this game that still blows my mind, they've never done since, is for each legend, the screen filters change. So like if you were playing Bill Russell's game, it was in black and white. The screen was in black and white. And what was crazy was there's no 3-point line, because 3-point line was introduced first in the ABA in the 70s, and it really got integrated in the NBA. I think it was like 76 or something. So when Bill Russell was playing, especially in that game, I think that was like 64. So there was no 3-point line in real life. And I love that they included that. So when you're playing that mode and you're replaying that game, there's no 3-point line, which was great. It was in black and white, and it just put you into it. Like I'd never seen something like that from just a visual aspect, from a presentation aspect. So, that mode was amazing. In the 80s, they had like the grainy effect, and it was just so cool that they did this. And you can tell that they put a lot of time and effort into it. But yeah, man, I love too the commentator. So when you played this mode, the commentary would be about that game. So let's say it's Bill Russell in the finals scoring like 30 points, 20 rebounds, or whatever. The commentators will talk about that game, the history behind that game, and it kind of feels like a documentary feel while you're actually playing through it. And the goal of this is to get the same stats that the actual player got. And when you do that, you unlock different things. So, I mean, it was like a story mode in a sports game, in a basketball game. So, I love that mode. And the crazy thing, too, is with those legends included all the classic teams that those legends were on. So, with the Celtics, you got the 64-65 Celtics, 64-65 Lakers because of Wilt Chamberlain. Because of Kareem, you got the 71 Bucks. You had the 91 Warriors, I forgot what they're called, but with Chris Mullin and Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, that was his name. And you also had the Rockets from the 90s. You had the Knicks, you had Patrick Ewing in the game. So you said all these classic teams, and I love playing with the classic teams. So yeah, man, it was an amazing game. Soundtrack was great. It was. I remember the trailer it had Curtis Blow's basketball in the background, and that trailer blew my mind because it was such a cool trailer where it went through different eras as the trailer was going, which it was just amazing. And they also had this create a legend mode where you could play basically the my player mode, which is like the single player mode where you create a player and you play through the NBA, but you can do that same mode but with any player in the NBA, any player in the roster. So you can have LeBron James and just start him off as a rookie and just play through his career, or Kobe Bryant or whoever. And man, it was just so much replayability. I mean, I've played that game. I played that whole year. I mean, I really enjoyed that game a lot. So that's number 4. Number 3 is NBA Street Volume 2. Now, similar to the NBA Jam series, this is an arcade series of basketball games that focus on street ball. Now, street ball I was really into back in the day, and it was really popular in the early 2000s. You had And One, which had its own TV show, which people like the Professor. I'm trying to think, what was his name? Elevator. Man, it's been so long, but there are just all these street ballers, and it was this kind of reality TV show where you go through their lives and like see them go to different cities around the country and just watch them play street ball and see any conflicts or friendships they had. And man, it was just such a cool culture. I just really enjoyed street ball. So when the first NBA Street came out, I was just blown away. Like I really enjoyed playing the street aspect of basketball and putting it in a video game that was well done. Moves like off the heezy, off the backboard. I don't even know all the moves. I just remember there was one where you could do like breakdancing with basketball. It was just awesome. Off the backboard dunks. And the big thing with this series is kind of like the NBA Jam series. When you hit enough shots, you get something called Game Breaker, which is just like it overpowers your team. You get all these special abilities in terms of like your ratings get higher, and you can do even more crazy dunks. You're almost unstoppable. So it was just a fun arcadey game, and I feel like Volume 2 is just everything the first one was, but better. It had these different personalities and specific characters for the game in that series that weren't actual real life people. Some of them are Biggie Little, I had a friend who used to just mimic all Biggie Lil's moves. He was like the crossover character in the game, and he was the one that did like off the heezy. He would put the ball in his shirt and come back out. I mean, we used to do that all the time on the playground. So Biggie Lil, Bonafide, he was like the dunker person. Stretch, he was like basically the Dr. J character. Julius Irving kind of rip-off character. And then White Water, he was like the shooter. He was a white dude. And I love, like, in the trailer, or maybe it was in the intro of the game, he had this shot where he would just, from half court, he wouldn't be facing the basket and just throw it behind his head and just shrug his shoulders and it would go in. And it was just a cool thing for a kid at that time. I mean, we all tried to do that shot, and it was just really cool. But that game, again, the arcade gameplay, it was 3-on-3 instead of 2-on-2, which is kind of differentiates it from NBA Jam. And one of the reasons I like this game over NBA Jam is it's not as arcadey, so it kind of, for me, it's a mix between NBA Jam and NBA Live. So it has kind of the gameplay feel of an NBA Live with the presentation of NBA Jam, and it's in a street ball setting, which I really enjoyed. But the game had story mode, the soundtrack, had Chief Rock from the Lords of the Underground, Black Sheep, Choice Is Yours, Troy by Pete Rock and CL Smooth. So I mean, this probably was the start. This and the Tony Hawk games really put me onto the underground hip hop scene, which I'm still a fan of today. So I definitely remember just listening to, especially Troy. That song came on and when you start up the game, and I used to love that song so much. So that's number 3 on my list. Number 2 is NBA Live 06. Again, so far on this list, I have every NBA Live from 2003 now up to 2006, and for me, that's the golden era of NBA Live. After 06, for me, they fell off. 07 wasn't as good, and that's when they started focusing on the next gen, and the games just started to become really bad. Now, with NBA Live 06, I'm specifically talking about the generation with GameCube, Xbox, and PS2, that last gen. When they came out with the 360 version, they took away all the features from, I had the game on GameCube, they took away all the features from that and made it bare bones, focused on the graphics, and the game was trash, So same thing, they did the same thing with Madden. So when I say NBA Live 06, I'm talking about the previous gen version, and basically it was NBA Live 05, but they added just the gameplay. To me was it just felt better. It's like it's the game that if I had to recommend an NBA Live game to play, I would say 06 over 05, just because it's basically 05 but better presentation, better graphics, and just better gameplay. It had this kind of I forgot what they're called, I think superstar abilities, where you had like Steve Nash, who was like a playmaker, so you can, I think it was hold the right trigger and press the face buttons, different face buttons, and he would do different kind of passes. Maybe it was a through the legs pass, and these are like special passes that he had. And not every player has this, but if you're really good, if you're a superstar and you're a great passer, you would have this playmaker ability. Someone like Kobe may have the scorer ability. Someone like Gary Payton probably would have the defense ability. You had Shaq with the power ability, like the power dunking. So in the post moves, you hold the right trigger, press B or A or something, any of the face buttons, you get different animations for these dunks, these power dunks. You had Vince Carter, he had like the high flyer stuff. So yeah, man, it was really cool how it made each superstar feel unique, and the playstyle was unique. So I think for me, that's the pinnacle of NBA Live games, where they focus more on what they were good at. They weren't competing. I mean, they were competing with 2K, but they were just going straight into the arcadey feel. And for me, it's the quintessential NBA Live game by far. Soundtrack was great too. Chamillionaire, Black Eyed Peas, Fort Myer. Remember the Name? I'm pretty sure that was on like every game at that time. That song was very popular, but yeah, man, I just really enjoyed that game. And now, I want to get into some honorable mentions. These are some games that didn't make my list, but I still really enjoyed, and they kind of have a personal connection for me. So the first game I want to talk about for my honorable mentions is NBA Courtside 2002. Now, NBA Courtside 2002, this was a game I actually didn't own. My cousin owned this game, and I used to go over to his house and play it, and he would bring it over to my house. And it's the series that featured Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant is kind of his game, and in terms of gameplay, it wasn't up to NBA Live or 2K standards. It was definitely more on the NBA Live side of the arcadiness, and similar to Inside Drive, this was more underrated. A lot of people, it wasn't like, if you're a basketball fan, you're gonna get NBA Courtside. It was kind of a niche fan base. It was actually put out by Nintendo, which was interesting. So it was exclusive to GameCube. Let's see, the developers Left Field Productions, and it came out January 13th, 2002. But yeah, it was exclusive to GameCube, Nintendo published, and it was just fun. I mean, I think the reason I like that game more is just the memories of playing with my cousin. But one thing that was really cool about the game, it had a street ball mode. I think even before even NBA Street came out. And they had like different, you can hit like 4 or 5 point shots. If you had probably half court was 5 points, and the 4 points was like kind of in between half court and 3-point line. It was cool because it added more strategy when you're playing this game. I'm down by 4 points, let me try a 5-pointer to win it type thing. So yeah, that game, again, it's just a personal preference for me. I don't think the gameplay really stood up to NBA Live or 2K, but I really did enjoy playing that game when I had it, and when my cousin brought it over, and I played it with him. The next honorable mention I want to mention is NBA Live 2001. This is the PlayStation 1 version, and the reason I mention this is because this is actually, from my memory, the first basketball game I ever owned. I got the PlayStation, I guess when this game was the new basketball game out. Yeah, I mean, I think I got this for Christmas if I remember correctly. But it was just groundbreaking for me because I just never played a video game before, at least on a console, and never played basketball games. So the graphics nowadays don't really hold up, but I mean, at the time it was mind-blowing. It was like I was watching the TV, but I was actually playing it. So this is what started me on my love for these basketball video games. This NBA Live 2001. So I had to include that, mention that. And then last honorable mention I'll just throw out there was NBA 3-on-3 featuring Kobe Bryant. This was actually a portable game. It was on a Game Boy Color. It's actually from the same series that did the Courtside. This was I think a port of one of the earlier games in that series. So this one also featured Kobe Bryant. He was like the face of it. And it's a Game Boy Color game. It's not great, but for me it's just the memories of my mom had a Game Boy Color that she bought for herself. It was purple, and I just loved, when we would go on trips and stuff, she would let us play it, and I bought this game because I just wanted a basketball game. I just played this, when you're going on trips, the fact that this was just a basketball game you could play portably, it was just fun. It was hard because I think, if I remember correctly, shooting, it was really hard to make shots. It was a weird game. I mean, it's on the Game Boy, so it's not really realistic, but it was fun, and it just brings me back to the good memories of going on RV trips or road trips and playing that game in the Game Boy Color. So that's it for my honorable mentions, and now that's left is number 1. For me, this is a no-brainer. It really wasn't even hard. I knew as soon as I was making this list that this could be number 1, and that's NBA 2K11. Now, I already have 2K12 on this list, and I do think 2K12 in terms of gameplay is better game, and But the thing about 2K11 is it just blew my mind because the jump between 2K10 and 11 was just so huge. The big thing about this game is it had this Michael Jordan mode, which is almost for me the first sports, or at least the first basketball game that had this single player element that I could just put hours into. And basically you play through, I think it was about 10 to 15 games of Michael Jordan's career where, just iconic games, the flu game, the game where he scored 63 points on the Celtics, the playoff games, the shot he did over the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I think it was the 90s Eastern Conference Finals. It was just so cool to have all this classic Michael Jordan games that you can play. The classic teams, they had all his teams from the 90s, and I think it had the 86 team you could play, and then it had all his shoes in the game. They had like a history thing where you can see the history of the game. There's like a write-up, and I love history and documentaries and stuff, so it's cool to be able to play through that. And because you were playing these games against these other teams, include those other classic teams. So you had, like the 90s Pistons, the 86 Celtics with Larry Bird, 97 Jazz. You had some of these older classic teams that these games they were playing against, and you could just play as them in the play now mode. So that was amazing. I remember the My Player was great because it had a draft combine. So even before the game came out, I think the summer before, probably in like August or something, 2K released the draft combine, which you can download and play through the draft create your player, play through the draft combine. So you see, you go through all like the running drills, the passing drills, shooting drills, and then that helps you raise your stock, your draft stock, so that when the game actually came out, you import that character you made and you start with the draft. And it was just really innovative at the time. It was really cool. They had like interview questions, the training camp, all that stuff. So My Player at that point was just, obviously an amazing single player mode. So again, this game, to me, the gameplay was still the classic 2K gameplay, which just felt fluid and realistic. But it's just the content. I mean, this game just had so much content for the time. And nowadays, I mean, that's never going to come back because everything's monetized, and with the online features they have in these 2K games, they're never going to put that much free single player content in a game again, basketball game again. So that's number one for me. And that's my list. I think I'll go back over it again just as a reminder. So number 10 was NBA Inside Drive 2003 for the Xbox. Number 9 was NBA Live 2003 for the GameCube. Number 8 was ESPN's NBA 2K5 for Xbox. 7 was NBA Live 2004 for Xbox. 6 was NBA Jam On Fire Edition for the Xbox 360. 5 was NBA Live 2005 for the GameCube. 4 was NBA 2K12 for the 360. 3 was NBA Street Volume 2 for the Xbox. 2 was NBA Live 06 for the GameCube. And the number 1 game, top 10 game, basketball video game of all time for me would have to be NBA 2K11 for the 360. So that does it for this first ever episode of this podcast. I want to thank you all for listening. Going forward, I'm going to be doing more of these top 10 lists. I'm going to be doing some rankings of, movies and albums that I like from artists. I'm going to do some album reviews, some sports talks, franchise reviews, a lot of stuff revolving around pop culture, movies, music, things that really interest me, that I think will interest a lot of other people. So thank you all for listening, and peace out.